Okay, welcome to another edition of the Collaboration Podcast. My name is Jonathan Kay, and I'm here with my co-host Marco Massi, as always. How are you, Marco?
Fine, thank you, Jonathan.
Good.
You?
We're doing great. Yeah, it's been a little while since we've done a podcast, but we have
Yeah.
a very special occasion here. We're going to go back a little bit into the history of the journal a little bit, and we're going to have a great interview today. But Marco and I just wanted to tell our audience that we are members of the Sri Aurobindo Association of America, and which is the organization that produces the Collaboration Journal. And about collaboration, it's now in its 50th year of publication and is a journal dedicated to the evolutionary vision of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. Collaboration examines the theory and practice of integral yoga, the place of humankind in the universe, and themes such as consciousness, emergence, and transformation. Articles, essays, poetry, and images explore the human impulse towards perfection and speculate on future possibilities as we move forward in a rapidly changing world. And I'll hand it over to you, Marco, to introduce our special guest.
Yes. So I introduce Andrea, and I do so by reading, first of all, a bio of her, so we put her in context. Andrea van der Loo was born as Angela, or Angela in English, Angela van der Loo, in the Netherlands in 1942 during World War II, to a father who was part of the German occupying forces as a member of the Nazi SS. He was sentenced to death for war crimes, but later released. She studied psychology at the University of Amsterdam, and in 1971 she hitchhiked to India, where she met the mother at the Sri Aurobindo ashram in Pondicherry. She lived in Auroville, South India, mother's experimental city in the making, dedicated to the evolution of human unity, till 1978. Her two daughters were born there in Auroville. Andrea has been living in Santa Cruz, California since 1979, where she had a healing practice. And after retiring in 2007, she continues to open and learn from life, devotes her energy and presence in service of family and friends, and dedicates herself to offer her memoir as her small contribution to a peaceful world. She wrote a book titled The Pressing Stones, The Healing Journey of a Nazi's Daughter, published by Cosmos Cooperative. She also published an article in the Collaboration Journal titled It's You in the Spring 2020 edition, volume 45, issue number 1. So welcome, Andrea, and nice to have you on board.
It's lovely to be here with both of you. Good
Yeah.
friends.
And the first question that I ask usually people is not about them, but how did you first come to know about the mother and Sri Aurobindo?
First
Yeah.
time I got a little I was living in Amsterdam. I got a little magazine, and in it was an article about Auroville with a picture of the spiral nebula. And I read that article, and there was one little quote by Sri Aurobindo, and it said, "All life is yoga." And even as I say it right now, I feel this thing in my body, like it was like bells ringing through my universe. I had no idea what it meant. You're going to do asanas in the kitchen. That's kind of just like I had no idea what that meant, but it was so all inclusive. I had stepped out of the Catholic Church because it was too dogmatic, and yeah, I couldn't handle it anymore. And that was a promise. I cut out the picture of the spiral nebula and put it on my kitchen wall as an image of hope.
Mhm.
And then when my boyfriend and I were given a year waiting list to continue our studies in clinical psychology, he wanted to go to India. And it's like, okay, here we go. So,
Yeah. So it was a sentence, not a book.
no, just
Yeah.
just 4 words.
Yeah, because normally people say, because I read the book of Saprem or
No,
whatever, whoever, of Sri Aurobindo, and so, and in case in fact, the All Life is Yoga is a very, very famous
yeah.
sentence of
And
Sri
it just
Aurobindo.
like, even now, as I just said it, it's like I can feel the whole thing in my
Yeah,
body, like big.
it's a very deep truth. Yeah, that
It
we
is. And
maybe
I
we
got
don't
it.
understand it with the mind, but intimately we feel it to be
You
true.
know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and okay, so you just mentioned the fact that you hitchhiked to India.
Mhm.
In this was when?
In 1971. So at that
1971.
time, we could still travel through the whole Middle East. We spent 2 weeks in Afghanistan, which I loved Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Those rugged Afghanis with their skin is like blue from all the indigo clothing that they're wearing. And they're like really mountain people. You can't mess with them. You can feel their strength. It was extraordinary. And then they're sitting
Mm.
on the veranda smoking hookahs, and it's like, oh, like that.
Yeah, we will eventually talk about that. Yes, what to, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I can't hear you anymore.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, no, you need to
Yeah.
just
No,
speak up
I
a little bit.
mean, I said about the smoking, drugs, and so on. Eventually, I have
Yeah,
some question about that
well,
too. But
part of life.
yeah. Okay, Jonathan, do you have eventually some question that you wanted to ask first?
Well, yeah, why don't we could point towards the article that you wrote in collaboration in 2020. It's called It's You, and it's about your first meeting the mother, which before we started you said is like the highlight of your life, like a culmination point. And definitely as we will spend a lot of the time kind of that story is also in your book, The Pressing Stones. And I think that
Yeah,
this we've Mark and I have read your book coming into this interview, and I think we want to really focus in on that. So this article from the Collaboration Journal is in the book. But why don't we just start with that, and that can kind of link us into your book and the bigger work, because
yeah.
there's a lot to talk about in terms of you can tell us about your meeting with the mother, but your book it's your whole life. It's like you said you've been writing it for 20
20
3
years. Yeah,
years, 20 years,
yeah.
and there's so much to talk about in terms of the context, of how is it that somebody like you said, like how is it that you are a young person in Amsterdam, you read these 3 words and they just spark you up, and you're hitchhiking across a multi, the continents.
Well,
There's
I'd like to say something about
jump
that
in.
too, because so what comes to me is when my father came. So first he was in prison for 10 years, my whole childhood, and I was in Catholic boarding schools, which is a nightmare. But he comes home when I'm 13, and he loves me, and he is a profound human being. He is a very deeply spiritual man. Like he gave me my first mantra: is the divine is the creator. No, delight is the creator. Delight is the creator. That's what he said to me. So he actually kept my spirit alive. I was still in the Catholic Church then, and then when I was 18, I left. But because of the connection with him, and he was Yeah, he was a profoundly spiritual human being. He actually came to live in Pondicherry because he got connected with Mother and Sri Aurobindo. So this foundation of deep spirituality was given to me by my father, and of course it was part of my being. You know, that's how we both came in. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's
So what,
definitely important context, which you unpack beautifully in the book as well.
yeah,
So
yeah.
Marco, yeah, did you want to follow
no, I was wondering about the title. It's You.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I
up?
would love to talk about the title. So I didn't know for a long time. One time I got an experience where I thought, "Forgive me for loving my father." To have that be the title. That because I was a big experience, I was terrified to come out in public with this my darkness, you know. So then when I started to chant the hymns from Sri Aurobindo's The Secret of the Veda, um, it was deeply transformative. I just really like to speak about the Vedas, especially Sri Aurobindo's translation and his commentary. I'm still reading it with two of my friends, one on one, and it is really deeply transformative. So at one point in the hymn to the Ashwins, gods of delight, he talks about the pressing stones, and they are the difficulties that we are given in our life to purify our being, to to clarify the unconscious formations that we grow up with, whether it's be trauma or belief systems, all the whole ball of wax of ignorance that we grow up in. Then we get difficulties for us to wake up. And each difficulty that I have experienced was part of my awakening. So then the title was like The Pressing Stones. That is right in the heart of the matter of my healing journey. That's why it became the title of the book. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So thank you for asking that question.
yeah, it's you, but but I still don't understand the connection between what you said now and the title. Because the pressing stones, okay,
So my
I
life
understand the
has
pressing
been, I
stones
had,
from your book, but it's you in the sense that it's part of your life, that every one of us has these pressing stones that that force us to learn some lessons in life, so to
yeah.
speak.
So
Yeah,
in the Vedas, it's like they push your being down through the cosmic
yeah, but
sea.
why it's you?
Well,
Okay,
that's
wait, one,
part of the story of meeting Mother.
right,
That's
right.
not the
So,
title of my book, it's the title of the article. So
right.
when
So
I
to,
met
so,
Mother, I had an experience when I saw
Ah,
her.
and she said so.
Didn't say anything.
Mhm.
So let me tell the story a little bit.
Yeah.
So I meet Ron Jurgensen. He was one of the Americans in the ashram when we first arrived. We weren't planning to stay. We just came, and then it was Mother's birthday, and we decided to stay. And then I meet Ron, and Ron tells me, because you are here for a short time, you can write a letter to Mother and ask her if you can see her in person. So, okay, well, sure, why not? I had no idea what that would be like.
Yeah.
But I wrote a letter and it was agreed. And the 27th of February, 1972, is when we had our personal darshan with Mother. And then one-on-one, you go in front of her. And one of the things that Ron told me is usually people bring Mother flowers. Well, when I
Yeah,
left
you
the
didn't.
Catholic Church, it was like, no more hoopla. Ah, I only want to do what's right for me. And I'm going, I don't know her. Why should I bring her flowers? It's like, well, if I like her and I see her again and I want to bring her flowers, I'll bring her flowers. That was my attitude. So Sunday morning, the 27th of February, 1972, my boyfriend and I were nicely dressed. We're walking out of the guest house, the Parc à Chabon guest house. And the manager happens to come out. He said, "Oh, good morning. Where are you going?" And we said, "We're going to see Mother." He said, wait, wait. And he runs over to the wall and he picks us each a huge hibiscus, an orange hibiscus with this crimson stamen. It was spectacular. So,
Uh,
okay, here we go. And now we
mm,
go, we walk to the ashram, and then we go up the stairs and on the landing and up the stairs. And it's noon by the time we come into Mother's room. And it's hot already, it's South India. And my hibiscus is wilting. It just
mm,
looks rather sad. I'm going, oh, okay. So I come into her room and I see her sitting really bent forward. She was very old at the time, 94. I come in front of her and I bring my hibiscus towards her and it opens. My hibiscus opens into full bloom from being
mm.
wilted. I'm like mesmerized, right? It's like, that doesn't happen. Anyway, so I give the flower to her attendant. And then I was like, I gotta look into her eyes. This is what Ron said. Make sure you look into her eyes. So I'm looking, and she is so completely still that it feels to me like she's on the other side of the galaxy. There's this vast distance, it seems. And I keep looking, nothing's happening. And I know something is supposed to happen. And then all of a sudden, I hear my own voice in my mind saying, open up. I can never say this without weeping. So at the moment that thought comes in my mind, we open up, both of us, and we recognize each other. And my whole being shouts, it's you.
Yeah,
And it was her experience and we didn't say anything, but it was internal. It was like, oh my God, it's you. We recognized each other.
oh, yeah, okay, no.
We were the same, even as we were two, we were the same. And we completely knew one another. It was extraordinary. That's why it's you. It's like, it says it all for me, you know. And, then when it was time to move along, we couldn't break our gaze because we were in like ecstasy, in the ecstasy of recognition. And so then, as I'm starting to walk out of the room, my tears start flowing, and I wept for 3 days because it's so shattering all my veils. All my veils were torn in that moment. So I did not only recognize her, I stood revealed to myself. And that was these tears were really bittersweet. Just such an interesting, that word is very active in the Muslim world, in whatever that religion is called again.
Islam or Sufism, is that is
Islam,
yeah.
in Islam, is the bittersweetness is a very central theme. And for me, it was the incredible experience of being known to her and to me. And at the same time, the grief of how many lifetimes I had waited to see God, really. And then to find it in her and in myself, it was just absolutely mind-boggling and shattering of all
Beautiful.
my systems.
Yeah.
Yeah,
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 it's very powerful to hear this, for sure.
yeah.
Um, and I wanted to ask you about, I mean, that moment. And what like again, this is all in the book, and I just want to say the writing and your writing is absolutely beautiful. The
Thank
clarity of how you write, very deep experiences. the way in which the book flows. It just flows. It's such a beautiful pace. It's not too slow. It's not too fast. It seems very even how you've covered so many decades of your life. I just wanted to say that, but now we have a chance to talk to you and get a different articulation of these things. But my question is like, I can't imagine the immensity of how that really broke you open on many levels, on a psychic level, on a spiritual level, on a physical
Completely.
level.
Yeah.
And part of the like the book, as you describe, it's like, okay, now what? You know where you want to be, so you start to live in and you get given a job in the ashram, and then eventually you end up in Auroville. But you still are like, it's almost like the problem of integration, as in the integral, is something that you deal with and you develop in your book. I think very beautifully. Probably, I would say because of your background in psychology, but there's a very strong psychological component to how you're kind of unpacking and framing your journey and the healing process and how you approach the problem of the integration of life, of the
Yeah.
the broad spectrum of life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I just wanted to ask you, like, tell us a little bit more about that. Maybe it brings us into Auroville, but
Yes.
it also comes up, the problem of integration later in the book when you are dealing with psychedelics and your shaman partner, and
Yeah.
it seems like your life is very rich with these kind of ruptural experiences. And the question always is, okay, well, I've had this glimpse, I've had this experience. There's parts of it that linger within me. There's parts of it that are still alive. There's parts of it that we forget. But how do we integrate that into the yoga, into a larger yogic life, So
I have no idea. You just keep at it.
yeah.
You just keep at it. I don't know how do you. So when I lived in, so let's talk for a moment about psychology. I studied psychology in Amsterdam. It didn't mean anything to me. It was the first 3 years, so I did my bachelor's, and I didn't feel I got anything. But so then I was going into clinical psychology, and I figured that's where the juice would be, right?
Hmm.
Because of my own system, I am unconsciously drawn to healing. At the time, I am not knowing that that's about me. I just want to heal other people. You know how that goes. So then I start come to Pondicherry, and I start reading the synthesis of yoga. And there it's all in the synthesis of yoga. Our entire psychology, our entire development from the unconscious into consciousness is in the synthesis of yoga with a precision and a clarity that is just absolutely incredible. A question like you read a paragraph, and every paragraph is like a transmission, it's like he doesn't skip anything. And I had the experience, and I hear this from other people too, that a question will arise. Well, guess what? In the next paragraph, he answers the question
Yeah.
invariably. It's extraordinary. Sherbindo is out of this world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's really interesting. So you studied psychology as an academic subject. It was knowledge and it
Yeah,
wasn't necessarily a living force. It wasn't something that you felt like you were able to put these lens and
yeah.
within you and start to
In
experiment. But
Amsterdam, at the University of Amsterdam at the time, it was very positivistic. So
yeah,
Jung was
right.
like
Yeah.
anathema.
It was exactly.
Like
And so just
the one guy who actually talked about the soul was like, no, we don't talk about
we
that.
don't talk about it
Like,
exactly.
oh, never
And
mind.
And
Yeah.
that's I just wanted to bring up like that is sure Bindo describes his entire yoga in one way as practical psychology. And so you firsthand experienced that as
Yeah,
I'm sure did
yeah,
as did I,
yeah.
I'm sure as did Marco as well. But
Yeah.
that's a good articulation of that for sure. Yeah, Marco, you had something.
Yeah, I'm not a psychologist, but my sensation, and maybe I'm wrong, it's my personal subjective experience, it's that people are rediscovering Jung now,
Hmm.
right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
I only recently heard, I mean, didn't read much about him, and what I read or heard about him, there are striking similarities between him and Sri Aurobindo. He had a much less positivistic view of the
Oh, not
human
at
being,
all.
Not at all,
So
huh?
Jung would spend time by himself in the mud on the edge of the lake, playing with little rocks in the mud to be in that other state, to
Yeah,
not be in the intellectual mind, but
yeah,
to really get to be in the depth of himself. And so that's what he speaks from. He is brilliant. Yeah, I would put him right next to Sri Aurobindo.
yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, because I think um, modern psychology is still not there yet,
No,
but it will discover Sri Aurobindo.
yeah, and in
There
the
are
Jungian psychology, it's all there. Yeah,
the Jungian psychology may be a door, an
yeah,
intermediate step towards Sri Aurobindo.
yes,
Yeah, yeah,
yes. He doesn't have the vision of evolution like Sri Aurobindo has,
yeah, mm,
but he has a very in-depth view of the
yeah,
human psyche
yeah,
and all
yeah,
the patterns that we are dealing with. Yeah.
yeah. Then,
So
mm,
you asked about integration. How do you integrate? Well, I suppose I answered that I have no idea. Life, you do your life and you, for me, it's like whatever comes my way, especially difficulties, when you're in them, is difficult, is painful. But over time, I learned really clearly that every difficulty was a gift because when I come through it, I am yet a little more integrated, a little more developed in myself, have a little more clarity. Now, how many times in my life I thought I was done because I have these amazing experiences like this, psychedelic session and the vision quest. I have these amazing experiences and I think, oh, I'm free. And then comes another whack.
yeah,
So in my experience, actually, relationships have been very instrumental in my development because in a relationship where love is present, the child inside of me is then thinking, oh, here it is. This is what I've been longing for, right? Because I had so much separation and isolation in my childhood. I really had my only first 2 years that I was safe with my parents, and then it all fell apart.
mm,
So that's a very early trauma. You need to have 5 years of safety to be okay. The first 5 years. So I had only two. So in every relationship, there is this feeling like, oh, here it is. And then that's, uh, the first 3, 4 months are always heavenly, right? Because you're in love and it's all beautiful. And then the shit hits the fan. And then you get to do your work. So my relationships have been very instrumental in my development. And now I'm free. I don't do it anymore. I don't want it anymore. I don't need it. I'm full. I'm complete in myself. That's really where I landed. And that happened at my 80th birthday. So that's the end of my book. I never knew how my book was going to end. It's like, I don't know. I'm not done. So when I was done, my book was done. And that was when I was 80. I'm now 83.
yeah. I think this is a common experience. Huh? Relationships are part of our yoga of life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course,
Yeah.
without that, you don't develop, or at least not as we should. No? There is not this integrality is missing if we have not
You
the
need to have the human connection.
yeah the
Yeah.
human connection. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I could pick up one of my questions that's based on this because two of the main threads that came out very early that run through the whole book, sexuality and spirituality, which a lot of the times in the more traditional or orthodox schools within any religion are kept radically separate and suppressed, especially in the West, I would say, but in
Yeah.
India as well. And so I think that was also part of your experience coming to India, seeing the mother, being in the ashram, and that was a time when you said, "Oh no, I feel full in myself," but that longing, that sense of like actually my path is in relation. There's things that I need to go through with people in intimate ways and whatnot. And I just wanted you to talk a little bit more about that because, I think one of the phrases from Sri Aurobindo that's really helpful for me to see the plurality and the openness of what this yoga demands is that there's as many integral yogas as there are people. Now, it doesn't mean that it's a completely relativistic scape, but it does mean that everybody has their own like you I think, you go through all the effort to write this book to give us the deep context of how the pressing stones were working in you, how like the context of your life, of how these things kind of embedded themselves, like you said, in like your very early psychic structures in your consciousness. And so I think
Right.
that's very interesting how these two threads have kind of are weaving back and forth and through just like the ebb and flow of nature, you're kind of at times caught and at other times freed and whatnot. But I think it's a very profound way of dealing with these two ideas, which are exemplified as being part of the problematic of integration and the integral especially in your life, but a lot of people can relate.
Yeah, yeah. So what was extraordinary for me that when I was a teenager and my father was home, so for him, sexuality and spirituality were they were one thing, they were all connected. For him, in the sexuality, you would experience the spiritual liberation or whatever you want to call it. So I had that as a foundation in myself. There were problems with it because, anyway, we don't need to go into all of that. But when I came to Auroville, I was so committed to the idea of manifesting the divine in the world. That's the vision of integral yoga, is to not to get out of here, and it's not about going to heaven, or it's like I was so relieved when I learned that right in the beginning when I was in the ashram, that it was about being here and us learning, opening and offering ourselves to manifest the divine in the world so that humanity can evolve to its next level, which is above the mind. Because this rational mind is a great thing, but it is also a big problem, as we can see. um, so when I then came to Auroville and my boyfriend had left, and here I am on my own, and I'm going, well, all I want is the divine. That is all I want, really. So I made a commitment in my soul to be celibate. It's not part of the integral yoga. It's not a requirement. It was my own desire to be solely dedicated to that principle, to that. And of course, that's when what I didn't know to call it at the time, my sex and love addiction kicked in full bloom. And I, I had a big experience there where I didn't want it and I could not help myself. And that was another huge event for me. And it was only when I came here to America where I learned about recovery from all kinds of addictions, that there is such a thing as sex and love addiction. And, I had never named it that. I just thought I was free to do whatever I damn well pleased. I didn't know how uh, what's the word, attached I was to it, my, yeah, addiction. So that's that, and then I met Daniel in Auroville, and within a month I was pregnant and I had my two daughters. So all of life. So I did the 6 months celibacy and I was very happy with that. And then there was Daniel, and it was just what had to happen. And within a month, I'm pregnant. It's like all of a sudden, like all these blessings are pouring down on me. He's a beautiful man. Everybody loved Daniel. Still, I mean, he's left his body a few years ago, but everybody loved Daniel. And we had two beautiful daughters. So that's what happened then. And um, then we get invited by Daniel's father to come to California. And we just said yes, and that's how we landed here. Yeah, and then life continued.
Yeah.
And sorry, I just want to jump in just to make sure we don't lose this part of your experience. But can you talk a little bit about those early days in Oroville? Um,
Oh,
because you are part of the, that was part of the pioneer time?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yes.
you're
Yes.
talking about like such a radical departure from the life you would have known in
Yeah.
Europe, but like bamboo huts, no electricity, no running water. Like, but
Yeah.
I mean, can you just describe a little bit of that experience? And
Well,
it's a very
so
interesting
I
time.
first started, I was invited to go and help in the center kitchen. So the center of Auroville at the time is around the Machamandir was being constructed. At the time, it was just a huge excavation down in the ground, and the first pillars were being concreted. They were rising up to support the huge sphere that is now complete. And so there was a Machamandia workers camp, and I became part of the kitchen staff and helped, cleaned up the place and brought tea to the workers at the Machamandia every morning. There's a beautiful picture of that. It's actually in the book. Um, so I'll tell you a powerful experience that I had the first time I walked up to the site, the building site. I felt physically like about several feet outside on the outside of the huge excavation. I felt like I was walking into a solid wall of peace. His mother. I mean, mother was put herself there completely. That's the only way I can explain that. And these things happen. You don't know that that's coming. You don't make it up. It's happened. My body felt this. So sometimes I participated with when we did the concreting. We usually did it at night because we didn't want the concrete to dry too quickly. So in the night it's cooler, and so all the concretings happened at night. And then I would participate in that too. We'd climb up on the scaffoldings and you know, anyway, do all this work. It was awesome. Um, so Auroville was at that time a desert. The
Mm.
plateau was completely denuded by the monsoons, by the goats, and by villagers cutting firewood. I heard that 80 years before Auroville started, when it was a complete desert, it was a jungle. The whole thing was a jungle. So then we started to plant trees and we regrew a jungle. When I came back in 2020 for a visit, I didn't recognize Auroville because all of a sudden you couldn't see the Machamandia from anywhere. It was you were under the trees, and it was very humid. Humid heat is really difficult for me. So anyway, that was it. But when it was barren, the experience, especially then when I went to Kotakarai, and which was a little settlement in Auroville, about a half a mile on the other side of the Machamandir. You could see all the way over the barren land to the Machamandir, and you could feel the heat was like power. It felt like solid divine power, like shimmering on the land. And like every blade of grass felt like it was inhabited by presence. Everything had presence. Everything. It is extraordinary. And now that is India too. When I walked into India, all of a sudden everything changed. Walking into India from the Pakistani border, I had a spiritual experience just setting my foot on Indian soil. It's extraordinary. So India is like suffused, the land itself is suffused with the divine. It is truly the mother nation, the mother country of the world, you know, the spiritual cradle of humanity is India.
Have you been in the Mati Mandir later when it was completely built?
Yeah,
Yes.
so in 2020, when I went to visit, I was able to go and so you go on these ramps that go around on the inside of this big dome. And then you come finally you come up to the room and you put on some white socks because the whole room is with white marble pillars, marble from Italy, it was imported, 12 marble pillars, white carpet. And Mother had specifically said, no music, no incense, no flower, nothing, just silence for us to tune in to that. So silence actually has become the centerpiece of my practice. When people ask me, what do you do? I say, I listen to silence. Which I
Yeah, the
give
Mati
my,
Mandir
so
is
then I
very
come into
powerful.
Mathamari, I come into the room, and in the center of the room is this huge crystal ball that was made in Switzerland, flawless. It's sitting on a gold construction of Sri Aurobindo symbol, which is sitting on Mother's symbol on the ground. And I come in there and I look at, and the light comes in from above. There's one beam of light that comes right onto the globe through the ceiling. So the light of the sun and the moon and whatever comes down through the center. And I'm looking at this crystal. It is so perfect. It felt like it's the beginning of life. It's like the first cell. It is almost not there because it is so translucent. And it just was it's an incredible material manifestation of that, of becoming transparent. That's what Mother's work was, to make herself transparent. And that's what you felt when you were with her, that she was translucent. And I saw her a second time, and then she stroked my head, and her hands felt like flower petals, or the hands of a newborn. They were like almost not there, translucent. It was extraordinary. So to see that there actually manifest in matter. Wow. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful rendition of your experience with the Mati Mandir.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks for asking. Yeah.
yeah, but in fact, I can relate to it. I mean, I guess also Jonathan was in the Mati Mandir, no? So, yeah.
You've been there, yeah.
Yeah, I have been there also, and one clearly can feel the energy, and you say it's the power of silence. Yeah, it's really the power of silence,
Yeah.
and and I felt also something very similar, but of different quality, but the same power also in the ashram.
Uh-huh.
In,
Oh,
in,
yeah. By the
it's a
samadhi.
samadhi,
Oh,
yeah.
oh, it's
Mm, yeah,
extraordinary.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, in fact. Did you meet also Satprem, perhaps?
No, I never met him
Mm,
personally.
mm.
No, no.
Never
I
met
met
him. Because I think he was more or less at that time, he was still there, right?
at the time. So when I came there, he was in the ashram. I read his
Mm.
book, of course. Sri Aurobindo, or The Adventure of Consciousness, was the first book I read, which is gorgeous. So I knew about him. I knew he was in the ashram. And then later, when things went after mother left her body,
Mhm.
uh, then things started to get really kind of weird in Auroville because all of a sudden there were these people and they were actually around Satprem. And I'm actually feeling that Satprem became part of the Asuric force. He had a very strong conviction of who was a true Aurovillian. And especially the French people around him, because he was French, they were connected with him, and they admired him, and he was a channel to them, to Mother, just like Navajata was, and Madhav Pandit, and other people. They were intermediary between you and Mother. So that's when things got. There was like a
Mhm.
fascist movement that blossomed in Auroville, and thank God I left. I say, if I feel like Mother took me by the scruff of the neck and said, "You don't need this, go." And that is
Mhm.
just like, I could hear the boots coming around the corner of my hut, if
Mhm.
that makes any sense. It was a dark time, but we all need to experience our darkness. I had to go into the dark of my night
Yeah.
too, to wake up,
Mhm.
and Orville had to do that too. And humanity is doing it as we speak.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned Akash Kapoor's book
Yeah.
in yours, and I read that, and I think I guess your book as well is discussing your experiences. It's not hiding the dark parts, and even you expressing this now, I'm sure it's not it wasn't possible maybe earlier, or it wasn't easy. Just like addressing dark parts of your past, like the main theme of your book. And I just wanted you to talk a little bit about why you think that's important and how you think that's important, because um, when I first started going to Auroville, I didn't know anything about this, although I could sense that there was people that were not wanting to share, what the past of Auroville was. And it took Akash writing his book and releasing it to the public to see. And there was a lot of controversy about that. And when I was in Auroville, I sat and got a chance to speak to him. And I think that there's a lot of learning going on.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he still finds, he was I guess I can't remember, he was born there or
Yes,
he
I
came
think
when he
so.
was very
Yeah.
young.
And so was
But
Orleans, his wife. Yeah.
right, so but he goes back home and he's now where he's from, I guess where he grew up. But he's met with some people are saying, "Thank you. We need this because you've brought something out into the field that needs to be dealt with. We can't repress this away forever, and we can't repeat these problems, and we need to work on it." Like it's the
Yes.
process of integration is to like you're like the pressing stones. It's such a powerful way
Yeah.
you described that at the beginning. And so I think there's a lot of importance in this. But he's also met with a lot of resistance saying,
Yeah.
why are you sharing with the world what is our problems or blah blah blah.
Well,
I just want you to comment on this.
because of shame.
Right, right.
When you have participated in evil because you were deluded, not because you are evil, but because you got seduced into some idea of glory, which was what happened in Germany and what is happening in this country. Let's make America great again. Oh my God.
Yes.
So when you're drawn into that, like my father was, and then you wake up out of it, you are full of shame. And the shame is the hardest emotion for us to feel, to become aware of, because that is like, now you are really, ew, ew, we don't want to go there. So denial is a powerful survival mechanism. It's in my
Mhm.
foreword, actually, how denial is such a powerful tool when we cannot handle with what we are actually deeply inside of ourselves feeling,
Mhm.
then we go over the top of it. and it's
Mhm.
safe over the top of it until life comes and says, wham, you go there because it has to be dealt with. And
Mhm.
most of Germany did deal with their shadow. That's the one nation in the world that has actually acknowledged the evil that was perpetrated by their country, and that they have adjusted themselves. And we want that awareness in the nation, which is extraordinary. America is so far removed from being fully willing to acknowledge genocide of the American Indians. What is happening now, and for always with immigration, with immigrants, there's always a group, the last group comes in, they are vilified. No, we don't want them. As if we are not all immigrants. Every white person in this country is an immigrant.
Yeah.
And then the black people were brought here slaves. And so there's slavery in ours. So we have enormous shadows. And then we have all this bright light over the top of it. America is very good at denial
Mhm.
because they have such a shining ego.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think this is only in America. It's still a
Well, it's
phenomenon that we,
particularly brilliant
yeah,
over here. It's particularly brilliant in the
yeah,
American
yeah,
psyche.
yeah. But we are unfortunately having similar movements and forces moving in the collective also still in Germany
Yes, I
as
know,
well,
I know. It's the
especially in
darkness
the
is
last
rearing its head
last
everywhere.
yeah.
The more light is coming down, the more the dark forces are going to try and keep us.
Exactly. I like this positive interpretation that it.
Yeah.
Mother once said that everyone, and this comes to my mind because sometimes there are such ridiculous things happening, besides sad things happening. The mother once said that when the supramental light will act, all the ridiculous things will come up. Yeah. And we will, and maybe this connects also with the shame that you were mentioning, that someone at a certain point one realizes how stupid, how ridiculous sometimes we act
Uh,
according to certain beliefs,
yeah,
and that makes us
yeah,
feel this
yeah.
this feeling of shame. Yeah. Um,
Well, we have a clown in the White House right now, so
yeah.
talk about ridiculous and
Yeah,
dangerous.
but he's not only the master clown. There are a lot of clowns.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
Yeah,
of course, yes.
yeah.
And you
Uh,
see there how so I believe that power is the central thing in humanity that needs to be transformed. Because when you get power in this
yeah,
world, you get, most of them get affected by the disease in power, of having power over, and then wanting to keep themselves in power becomes the most important thing.
Mhm.
We had a talk by um, Madeleine Albright here in Santa Cruz. She was a state, what do you call that?
Secretary of State.
Secretary of State at some point. And she knows all these people. See, she knows Erdogan, she knows Chavez, she knows all these people that came in with fantastic vision for their country.
Yeah,
And then they get into power, and then they start to control, and they want to stay in power. They think it's only them who can keep it right. And that power itself pollutes. So
yeah,
people who are drawn to power, my understanding, they're young souls, because that is something that can happen in humanity. We can have power over things. And that is such a falsehood, that is actually the central thing that needs to shift, that we go into power with empowering everyone, you know, that this equality that we all know that is actually the truth, that we're all equal, we're all equal, all of us, black, green, yellow, white. We're all just simple human beings, part of this one being. To me, humanity is one being.
yeah.
And so here, each of us are like a cell in the body of humanity. That's how I see it. I'm this little blob of consciousness and cellular manifestation in humanity. And many more of us that can purify our being to begin to live this equality and to begin to live from a higher place of consciousness, the more we contribute that into the whole being of humanity. We change, every one of us brings a little bit of change in the body, in the collective body. And that is my job. And I think anybody in the integral yoga that's part of our job.
Yeah, I think your book is doing this very well. And Sri Aurobindo also said, no, that the transition to the subjective age will come only when we will, also our ego will transition from a selfish, centered mindset to an open welfare of humanity as a whole. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's only when this shift will occur
And we
that
are in the middle of it. I believe
we are in the middle of it.
we are smack dab in the middle of that whole
Yeah.
situation because
And I think these Azuric forces strike back so hard precisely because they are seeing that there is this transition, and this is a death sentence for them. Yeah.
yeah.
And
And
that's
so
why,
they're fighting to the teeth to
yeah,
keep
yeah.
it. Yeah.
May I ask you another question that came up to my mind very often? It's now, okay, let's transition us also here from one topic to another that is completely disconnected. Well, not entirely disconnected, but it's disconnected
It's
to
all
this one.
together.
Yeah. Because in your book, you describe also your experience where you're already a bit talked about that, about your dependencies. How do you say?
The addictions.
The addictions, yes, thank
Yeah.
you. There was, however, another addiction you are writing. You were writing about,
Yes.
and that about marijuana and
Yeah.
drugs in general.
Yeah.
No, so my question is not so much that you talk about that. Of course, if you wish, you can also talk about your personal experience. But just because you had this personal experience also with an addiction with drugs, what is your take about this recent revival, since we are talking about these social collective issues we have having nowadays? What is this recent revival of psychedelics in your mind? Because there was in the 1960s there was
Yes.
LSD and
Yeah.
marijuana and hashish and so, and
Yeah.
then I remember I'm part of a generation who didn't really live that. I remember that in my youth, there was drugs was an absolutely no-no,
Yeah.
and however nowadays we are seeing also among intellectuals, academics, who uh, talk about this psychedelic, which is not marijuana but other kind of drugs like
Yeah.
ayahuasca and so on.
Ayahuasca.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and they would like us to believe, right or wrong, that's the question a bit,
Yeah.
that this is a possible path to
Yeah.
spirituality.
Yeah. Oh, let me tell you something.
So what's your take about that?
So the first thing I wanted to mention to you, that somebody gave Mother a little booklet that had been written about LSD. Mother held the book in her hands. She never opened it, but she held it in her hands and she
And then she
tuned
had
it.
experience, yeah. Yeah.
At first, she thought she was going crazy, which is so interesting. It's like she had the experience.
Yeah.
When she came out of that, she said, beyond a shadow of a doubt, it is a direct action of the Supreme. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, LSD is a direct action of the Supreme. I have been in the lap of God on acid. I have had extraordinarily exquisite experiences of being completely dissolved in my personality and my rational mind into that, into the bliss of that, of this sweet silence. That is a gift you can never get through your rational mind. So myself, I had a hugely transformative experience when I did a therapeutic LSD session with my shaman, where I actually got to face my shadow. And in the heart, in the core of my shadow is the Holocaust, as you can imagine. I would have never been able to get there without my regular mind. So our normal mind is actually designed to keep us away from the depth of our being, to keep us up here where it's all safe and comfortable and known in the known world. But underneath the known world is this massive subconscious realm where everything of any significance lives, good and bad. And so the psychedelics, ayahuasca, for some psilocybin, LSD, MDMA, all these materials, MDMA is also exquisite material. So I have on my website, I have a description of all these substances and what they give you. So if you go on the website, there is a link to an article or a whole paper I wrote because I sat for people for psychedelic journeys. That was my work for quite a number of years. It was extraordinary because you bypass all these limitations, the mental protection of the shadow, and you can dive straight into it. And also what happens is then the nervous formations in your mind can be rearranged because you are building different pathways that were not accessible to you before. They were always available, but you don't know how to access them. So when I saw Mother, there was like a whole new pathway in my nervous system where I had that connection. But then when I had to do my inner work, I did it with a number of substances, and it was extraordinary because I could see and be aware of all my shadow material and process it and clear it. So all these, it's like ayahuasca is a very physical. It's like, to me, that's like your cells come awake. So there are extraordinary experiences to be had. A lot of people are doing, what is this called? This mini doses. There's a word for it that I'm not getting right now.
Microdosing.
Microdoses.
Mm-hmm.
And people's lives change. I have a friend who has been depressed his entire life. He became addicted to marijuana because marijuana for a moment made him feel good. That's what happened to me. And he is now on a microdose of psilocybin. And he can finally be himself. He can enjoy his life. He can function.
Mm-hmm.
He can travel. He's not smoking anymore. He's sober, but with the support of microdosing. And it changes his brain to the extent that he can now actually be who he is. So they're great gifts that are now acknowledged in the therapy circles, in the psychological and psychiatric circles, they were in the 60s, they were also acknowledged by psychiatrists and psychologists. They knew the gift of bypassing this thing that keeps you from everything, this mind that protects you from the deeper self. So yeah, there are great gifts in it. And the one thing to be aware of is to not get addicted. Now, psychedelics are not addictive. It's way too big of an experience. You need several months to kind of integrate. Now, what I didn't know was that marijuana was addictive. I didn't know, and nobody believed it, and we thought, oh, it's harmless. Now it's legal, which is a good thing. It's legal, like with alcohol, you know. If it's illegal, it goes into the dark. So now at least out in the open. But people don't realize how addictive marijuana actually is. I got fully grabbed by it. You know, after my session, and then I realized how dissociated I was, when I felt upset, all I could know was that I was upset, but I didn't know why. I didn't know what was going on inside of me. And then I would take a toke of marijuana and was like, oh, he said that. Oh, I got hurt this way. Oh, and I did a lot. I filled notebooks upon notebooks of processing what I felt was my inner child healing work. Because the marijuana gave me access to a deeper awareness.
Yeah.
Because I was so dissociated. So now, then when I eventually, so then I came to the point where I smoked first thing in the morning, and I realized I had a problem. And the moment when I realized I had a problem, I couldn't stop. It was too late because I had been completely taken over by the addiction. It's like a possession. Addiction is like a possession. You lose your will, you lose your free will, you have to have help. And so I ended up in recovery, and thank God for recovery. That's where I really
So you see a
learned to
difference
heal.
between marijuana and these drugs that create an addiction and psychedelics which don't.
Yes, psychedelic. So the only psychedelic that I'm aware of that is actually addictive is ketamine.
Okay.
And I noticed when I stopped everything, ketamine was the only thing that I missed. Because ketamine is actually addictive. But the experience of ketamine is like you leave your body completely. You are in the great consciousness of everything. It's an extraordinary experience. I can highly recommend it. I do. You know, I don't need it anymore because I live there. But now, finally. Yeah.
Jonathan, do you want to ask some questions?
Oh man, this is a great conversation,
Yeah, we
fascinating.
could have a whole other conversation about recovery. Wow.
Yes, yes, true. We've come, I think, just over an hour, and maybe I'll just end by asking a question about your writing and your yoga practice, because this process of healing and how you confronted and worked through things through the writing process itself. And so I just wanted to ask you about the writing process and yoga, your practice of yoga. This.
Yeah. So my practice of yoga is basically to just show up for whatever happens. And
Hmm.
when I get in trouble, I seek help because I can't do it myself. So I have
Hmm.
great healers. I have this wonderful shamanic woman. I describe her in my book, in one of the last chapters too, where she helped me get clear of my past, finally, really get really clear of my past. My father actually showed up and tried to pull me out of the dark pit of my childhood. And we were just talking about the dark forces rearing their ugly heads. So when that happened, you know, he reaches out to me from the other side, wants to pull me out of my suffering. And I'm doing that, and I see and feel these creepy hands behind my low back trying to keep me down in the pit. And then she invoked the Kali, and it was like, and we cut the cord, and I got free, and I am free. This is amazing. I didn't know it was going to happen in my lifetime, but it did. So I just show up for whatever arises, and I do whatever work, and I seek help. So seeking help is a big deal for me. A lot of us grew up without really having help when we were children. When we had trauma, we were alone with the trauma. We did not have anybody to talk with about it, to have support. So for those of us, we are trained not to ask for help because that's not available. So thank God I got into addiction and I got into recovery, where the principle of recovery is that you ask for help because you can't do it anymore, which is true. And I recognize it. I can't help myself. And so seek help. That is what I would say to everyone. Get humble, seek help. Don't think that it won't work. Keep at it until you find something that does work. You find somebody or a group. You know, the 12-step programs, they are free and they're everywhere, and they are for every possible addiction and problem under the sun. So I'd like to mention ACA is the Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. That is where I got to do my final childhood healing, because that's where you learn to become your own loving parent. It's your work to heal that child within you. Nobody will do it for you. You can have help, whether it be of psychedelics or therapy or groups, but it's your work. And your work, my work, changed when I learned that I had to accept my child's self as my child and take care of her. And that's what I learned in ACA. And there you are with people who are all willing to do the hard work. Nobody's telling you what to do. There are no preachers, there's no dogma, there's no religion. It encourages everybody to find their own, what we call a higher power. Find something inside of you or outside of you, wherever you find it, nature, the church, your heart, something that that you can lean into, that you can begin to identify yourself with, which is the divine, really. So the 12-step programs are really, when I came in there, I was shocked and astonished that I actually got to learn what the integral yoga wants you to do, is to surrender to the divine. That's what you learn. You do the 12 steps, you learn. You actually have 12 steps that you do with somebody's help, not on your own. Can't do it on your own. Where you find out your problems and you learn to give yourself to the divine.
With a
It's
childlike
extraordinary.
attitude.
Huh?
With a childlike attitude.
Yes.
There's a
The humility. That
What?
is where I finally, humility.
Humility, yeah.
It is in AA where I learned humility. And was that a relief? I could just sit down and be one of many. I didn't have to be special. I didn't have to be worse than. I didn't have to be better than. I was just one of all of us. One little being in the totality of being. And that is what you can experience in these groups. It's very, very special. People have all kinds of ideas. I had all kinds of ideas. Oh, first you were addicted to alcohol, now you're addicted to AA. Oh my God. Well, I was addicted to marijuana. I was thinking that. So, then I had to fall down, and I did. I got really into complete darkness of my soul in the addiction. Yeah. I thank God I did. It was a blessing.
Yeah. The night of the soul.
Yep.
There's what's a famous Christian mystic.
Yeah.
Spanish
Eckhart, I think.
mystic.
Oh,
Hmm?
Spanish. Mr. Eckhart? No, The Dark Night of the
No, no,
Soul.
no.
No, it's different.
Spanish mystic. Oh, I don't remember his name now.
Yeah, there are lots of
He was
saints who talk about that. Saint
the
Teresa
Dark Night of
and
the Soul. Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. As a necessary transition from the darkness to the
Yeah.
light, we have to
And
go
in
through.
humanity, that is happening in humanity too. We have it simultaneously as the light is arising and more of us are waking up. And
Yeah.
we know that a better world is possible. And
Yeah,
hopefully it will come before we destroy it completely.
yeah.
Yeah.
And there comes to my mind the green belt. Yeah, the green belt was mother's instruction, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, and at that time, I think only in very small circles people were talking about the environment and ecology
Oh
and so
yeah.
on. But
Yeah.
this was the right move. Also, something very symbolic, I find, because
Oh
what we
yeah.
are missing now are forests, are
Yeah.
trees,
Yeah.
and
And that's what
with
we
all the
did in
issues.
those first decade in Auroville. All we did was plant trees.
Yeah, and that's one of the solutions, not the
Yeah.
solution, but one of the
It's a big
practical
one. Yeah.
solutions that we need. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful,
Thank
Andrea.
you. It was so delightful
Yeah.
to talk with you too. I was so looking
Yeah.
forward to this.
Yeah, same here. It's been great. We've traversed a lot of territory here in terms of getting some glimpses into the book, but I'd still recommend everybody go out and get your book. You also have you've been doing events, book, I
Yeah,
guess,
I'm
book
going
releases,
on
book
Monday.
talks.
This
Yeah.
Monday, I'm leaving to Colorado, and so Sri Devi she was a professor at she's an Indian woman who also met Mother when she was a teenager. So she gets me because she is connected with
Hmm.
Mother too. She was a professor at Naropa Institute. And after I got the event scheduled at the public library in Longmont, Colorado, she put her considerable power into service of me and my book, really. And I have 9 events scheduled in
Mm,
2 weeks in that area, in Boulder, in Longmont, and Fort Collins, and eventually a whole evening at the Naropa Institute. So that's very special. Very
Yes.
special. I'll get to, so that's coming. It's coming in a few days.
mm,
Great. Well, enjoy that and all the
Yeah,
best.
yeah,
And
I
thanks for
will.
being with us. Thank you, Marco, as
Thanks for
always,
having
for
me.
being
you're
with me. And
welcome.
yeah, and until next time.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
nice
you.
time. Bye bye.
Bye.